Hello, everyone. Welcome to the FreedomBox BoF. I'm just going to talk a few minutes to go through some of the recent progress and future plans. And then if people want to comment on any of these, feel free to jump in. So kind of looking at the progress from the last DebConf. So one of the big features that was implemented was the scheduled backups. If you use FreedomBox, you might have noticed a notification kind of nagging you to set it up. And you can do it on different schedules like monthly or weekly or daily, and you can choose which apps to include in the backups and which ones to exclude. And you can also do it either to a local disk or to a remote server over SSH if you have one of those. And then we added an app called ZoF, which is a photo organizer. This is someone else was involved in the packaging of this, and then we saw it became available in Debian, so we went ahead and just integrated it into FreedomBox. Personally, I haven't used it much, but if you're interested in organizing your photos this way, you can look into ZoF. And yeah, another feature, we enabled the ZRAM compressed swap on all our images. This basically frees up some of your RAM by compressing. Should help a lot on boards that have smaller amounts of RAM. If you only have like 0.5 GB or 1 GB, you should notice a big improvement there.
Yeah, I agree.
We have Coturn on the FreedomBox, and we have integration with Matrix Synapse and eJabberD. These are two chat protocols that both support audio and video calls. And yeah, the Coturn is really necessary. It's basically a turn server that lets you lets your client device get around any firewalls or NATs that might be in the way. Matrix Synapse integration was already available in Buster backports, and eJabberD is added in Bullseye. So yeah, when you have this enabled, basically audio video calls over Matrix or over XMPP should just work basically. Another feature was automatic dist upgrade to Bullseye, which has gone pretty smoothly. We've had a few reports of a few people had some issues, maybe lost contact with their box. And there are a couple of packages that weren't automatically upgraded yet, but I think we can just fix those up in the next release to backports. But overall, I think this has gone very smoothly since we've not had too many complaints. Yeah, so if you wanted, you could basically have your Buster system automatically upgrade itself to Bullseye as soon as that was released.
I think that's a great idea.
Yeah, it did require some hacks. We were hoping that unattended upgrades would kind of handle most of it, but there were a couple situations that it couldn't handle on its own. So we had to manually remove some old packages and ended up calling apt full upgrade. But hopefully in the future, we can kind of remove those hacks and just rely on unattended upgrades to do this. I also want to mention that there was a Google Summer of Code project this summer, which is just about finishing up now. And that is an email server. There was a lot of work done on it, and it's already been merged into the mainline branch of FreedomBox. It's not visible to all users yet. We haven't quite toggled it on yet. There's a little more work that needs to be done as far as the domain configuration and the automatic Let's Encrypt certificate configuration. But I think as soon as a few more items get fixed up in the user interface, then we'll be able to ship out this email server feature to all FreedomBox users through Bullseye backports.
Blends integration, FBX tasks, and FBX all. Could we mention about that?
Yeah. So this was a feature that Sunil worked on mostly. Basically creating these blends packages, which are just kind of wrappers on top of the usual FreedomBox package. So FBX all, if you install that, it will basically install FreedomBox. It also has suggests, I think, for lots of packages that could be useful on FreedomBox. So it allows us to kind of monitor current or potential packages in Debian that could also be useful on the FreedomBox.
Future plan?
Yeah, well, I want to stop here if anyone has a comment on any of the recent progress items. And
I actually do. I have a quick question. So for eJabberD and Matrix Synapse, when was eJabberD introduced in for the solution, and also the automatic distribution upgrade to Bullseye? Is that via a simple terminal command? Can you deploy that, or is there like a graphical tool for it, or how will that work? Because I know this software is aimed at consumer users who may not have experience with terminals. You know what I'm saying? Or might want to use a GUI. So is there a GUI for it, or how's that working?
Well, when I say it's automatic, I actually mean it just happens in the background, while you're sleeping. There is a GUI if you want to turn off this feature, but it's on by default actually.
I would just think, that's even better for a consumer, because the consumer does not have to, the administrator does not have to sit there and do maintenance. It just automatically, Bullseye gets released, I'm going to autonomously upgrade myself.
Yeah, and that's the general idea with FreedomBox. We really want to avoid making users type anything into the command line as often as we can.
Yeah, I was just asking because I know that users like me, I'm comfortable with the terminal, but because I'm a longtime Linux user, but some people are not. You know what I'm saying? So this automatic upgrade feature, I think, is a great idea to make Linux more accessible in the server space. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, definitely. I think this is what our users expect, is that
like
they keep getting.
Like for homes and small businesses, if you're running a little market or a little pizza shop or something, or a little shop, and you don't have IT experience, but you want to serve 5 users, FreedomBox is a great idea. But because they might not know about servers, they might know how to fix some desktops, like if I'm running my computer repair store, but the person might not know Linux because but they know how to repair stuff. Like that'd be great for like a small business who like a little restaurant who wants to run a server for sharing files around, but doesn't have the experience to run a server because they just don't have the money, or they can just buy a Raspberry Pi and they know how, and they can use FreedomBox and, provision a server in minutes, and they have it for easy use.
Yeah, I just see some comments in the chat of the Jitsi Meet. They said they want to switch back to the camera rather than desktop share. I guess it's on my camera now.
You don't want desktop share? What's going on?
Yeah, according to the chat, they do not want desktop share.
They don't want desktop share? Why doesn't the user? Mm-hmm. So unshare?
That's what I'm reading.
Okay, so then what I'm going to do is, because they don't want to share it, I'm just going to throw the Etherpad in the chat. Hello, are you there?
Yes. Any other comments on recent progress? I see 100.
Yeah, I had a question already in the pad as well related to this feature. I actually tried to upgrade. I bought a FreedomBox, so the hardware included the software of FreedomBox. Confusing, by the way, to call both the hardware and the software FreedomBox, but I understand why it's that way. But I know Debian, and actually I was surprised that I upgraded the system, and then later on it wasn't doing anything anymore because it turned out that the app sources were reverted back to Buster. Should I, as a user of FreedomBox, just expect those kind of things to happen, or was I just doing it the wrong way?
You can answer Albert's question first, and then I have a question. So would that be fine?
Sure. Well, I'm not sure why it would do that. It seems like an issue. Yeah, there could be an issue with our just upgrade feature where it doesn't quite work if you go to the next release to be stable. I'm not sure about that. Definitely, you can turn off this dist upgrade feature in the options so it doesn't do anything.
Yeah, relatedly, I nuked my Apache web interface by just turning that off because I was serving another website over it, and I just didn't want to figure out the configuration out. So I'm not using the UI in that sense. I just treat it as a Debian server.
Okay, if you don't want the FreedomBox web interface, I think just disabling the Apache configuration is not sufficient. You should also disable the plinth service.
Right.
I'm not sure if you did that also, but
let's not go into these details, but that was just a comment on the upgrader. I tried to be early and then it broke a bit.
Will this be available for any Raspberry Pi, not just your FreedomBox? Like, do you have an ISO for it at all?
It's not ISO. Is it ISO? I think it is ISO. If you go to freedombox.org, you'll see lots of images for lots of different hardware devices. Not just Raspberry Pi, but yeah, the ALMX boards. We also have images for the Lime 2 and many others. That's if you want to build your own FreedomBox. Of course, you can download the image for one of those devices. And then you can also buy the FreedomBox from ALMX, the Pioneer kit, which is based on the Lime 2.
What is the Lime? I never heard of this board in my life. I heard
it's
of
just another embedded board, low power, similar to a Raspberry Pi.
ARM based?
Yes. Yep.
Just checking. I thought it would be like some strange Intel or who knows.
No. I see some more questions in the pad. Someone is asking about a checkpoint and rollback option if the upgrade has problems. Yes. At least for all the images we build and distribute through freedombox.org, those are all using Btrfs. And there is a snapshots feature in the FreedomBox web interface. So you can create a Btrfs snapshot and you can roll back also.
It's kind of funny because I've never heard of Debian with Btrfs. My distro I'm running right now, OpenSUSE. I also use Debian on another machine, but I've always thought Btrfs was just an OpenSUSE thing. You know what I'm saying?
You can choose Btrfs in the Debian installer also. It's not the default option, but you can select it when you're partitioning.
Sorry about that. Every single time I think of Btrfs, I automatically think of OpenSUSE.
There's another question. Looks like the hardware is Raspberry Pi based. I wouldn't say that, but we do have images for Raspberry Pis, and we have images for many other hardwares. And is that sufficient for this target workload? It depends on what you want to do, I guess. How many apps you want to run, how many users you want on your box. And of course, we support any hardware that Debian supports, really. Even if we don't distribute an image for it, you can always just install Debian and then install FreedomBox.
I have a question. It says it supports the LinkSprite PCDuino 3S, but I have a PCDuino 3. Do you support that? It has an Allwinner A20.
Possibly, we would have to check if they were compatible, as far as like
here it is.
U-boot and
this is what I'm talking about.
Yeah,
These
I
will
mean, it's
be
possible, but someone would have to look into the details. Like, are they the same target for Flash kernel? Are they the same for U-boot? And maybe if
Yeah.
you can't use the same image, maybe you can build a slightly modified image that would run on
Yes,
it.
because the default Ubuntu is still 12 point. This default OS it runs is Debian Squeeze, and it also can run Ubuntu 12.04. So it's kind of dated hardware. You know what I'm saying?
We do have images for x86 also. There was a question in the Jitsi chat about that. And yes, you can run it on any Raspberry Pi, not just your FreedomBox. I'm not sure what that means. The only FreedomBox being sold as a product right now is based on the Linux Tito Lime 2.
Oh, that makes sense. I got that a little bit confused because I know other people use Raspberry Pi platforms for stuff. So what are we going to be going over next?
Next, we can go on to the future plans for the project. Oh, Bo is raising their hand here on Jitsi.
Just at some point, I wanted to offer the perspective of somebody using the Pioneer Edition sort of as a naive, unsophisticated user, which unfortunately comes quite naturally to me. Why don't you go through what you're going to go through, and or whenever it's appropriate, I can chime in.
You can go down. I mean, that's fine. We can talk.
Okay. Yeah, I've been trying to use it essentially remotely. I mean, I use it for myself, but I could see convincing other people to get Pioneer Edition, for example. I think the idea of the FreedomBox as an appliance is still kind of aspirational, but I think there's a sweet spot if you have some in your circle who has some modicum of technical expertise. Even somebody with no technical expertise could still benefit, could acquire and benefit from a FreedomBox, even in this Pioneer Edition factor. I think it's really it's well executed for being able to set it up and so on, but it's still fairly easy to get into the weeds a little. I think it's important for the documentation. The strength of the thing is Debian, and one of its weaknesses is Debian. I mean, the strength community, the number of packages, but there's also the diversity of the packages and people's approaches, designing things, which makes the interface a bit motley in a way, and maybe in some sense a little hard to use. But I think it's really important. The documentation does a pretty good job at this, the manual, of calling out quirks and gaps, because I think one of the pitfalls to avoid, you want it not to drive people away, is to avoid wasting their time. And it's hard if you're banging your head against something that you shouldn't have had to bang your head against. That's one observation. Personally, the two things I would have wanted to do with this, and I can imagine other people wanting to do that I haven't been able to do, is, for example, stick in a USB drive in my Pioneer Edition and be able to store things like music, ebooks, photos on that. And I know that there are proposals out there for being able to use alternative storage more easily and redirect where an application store their data. And I think that would be a real good thing. Putting a USB drive in there, I found that with Cockpit, I think it was a permission type issue, because another little glitch is the difference between Unix permissions in use and Freedom users and permissions. So those two things maybe go together a little bit. I also found it pretty unfortunate that pandemic hit when the conferencing capabilities, audio-visual, either point-to-point or multi-point, were still not very mature. I set up synapse, but I had people laugh at me trying to get them to use Element and reset the server and so on. It's easy to underestimate the extent to which people have been used to convenience. But if, for example, I've been able to give them a URL to my FreedomBox, have them click on JSXC and have it work, I might have been able to convince people that not only did this work, but that they might be interested in also getting their contacts and calendar and so on off of Google. But I haven't been able to make that work yet. I'm not sure what the problem is. Anyway, those are my observations. I think it has a lot of promise. It's not an appliance yet, but it's
Getting there.
it's definitely usable by an expanding group of people.
Paul would like to speak.
Yes. I agree with Bio's statement. Sorry for pronouncing your name wrong. I am just saying that if I agree with your statement, but I'm also just wondering if it will this system, and speaking of conferencing, will that ever get a capability to run a private Jitsi server, not just XMPP, but Jitsi, full-on Jitsi like we're doing right now? Just a question.
That's one of our future plans that we were going to discuss, actually. maybe we should save that for the, well, I guess we're talking about it now. So Sunil and I have started working on packaging the Jitsi video bridge. This is sort of a backend component of the Jitsi meet. And even if we don't have the full like web front end packaged, we can use this with the Android app, I believe, for Jitsi. So once this packaging work is completed, then we'll be able to add a Jitsi video bridge, at least the back end, to the FreedomBox.
When will there be a front end, like something like a meet.openSUSE.org or meet.debian.org? You know what I mean? But with the front end, you know what I'm saying?
I expect the front end will be significantly more difficult to package because of all the JavaScript, JS dependencies. So I'm not sure about that.
Mm-hmm.
But I think for this year, at least, we're targeting to get Jitsi video bridge packaged. Maybe I'll just discuss the other future plans real quick. Since Bullseye has been released, we need to update all the images on freedombox.org. So I think soon we'll be rebuilding those images and updating the website to provide Bullseye images for each hardware target, for each hardware device. Very recently, we had WordPress added to FreedomBox, so it'll be in the next release, which is, I think, next week. And then we'll also have this in Bullseye backports if people want to install WordPress. I already mentioned Jitsi Video Bridge. There's also Search Admin, which Search is it's a app for searching, but uses Google and other sites, I think, as its to go get search results. But it provides a more private interface to those search engines. And this is some administration tool that is being packaged by Fred, actually. And that should be in, well, it's in the Debian new queue right now, and then it'll be headed to experimental. And another topic that's on our roadmap for this year, we want to have Nextcloud running in a Docker container. Again, with Nextcloud, it's very difficult to actually package it because of all the JavaScript dependencies, basically. So at least for this, but we think Nextcloud is a very important app, so we want to at least make it available through a Docker. It won't have the same, let's say, reliability guarantees that we have for normal apps that are installed from Debian packages, obviously, but we at least want to have something available. So any comments on our future plans?
Yes, I'm wondering, so for Nextcloud, will it be as featured?
Sorry, I think the audio dropped. I didn't hear anything after Nextcloud. You are muted.
I
Yeah,
said,
Paul, please unmute.
I said for Nextcloud, will it be as reliable? Because I know it's running in a container, but will any features be missing?
I don't know yet. I mean, I think we'll just use Upstream's Docker containers. So it's whatever they release.
Whatever Docker says, or whatever Nextcloud says.
Yes. There were some more questions on the pad. Someone says they're downloading a QEMU image. Any thoughts about running FreedomBox in a virtualized environment? I have never really run it in a virtual environment for a production system, so I don't know too much about it, but of course you need to forward ports to your QEMU or use some kind of bridge networking so that you have a public connection to the outside.
How about running Etherpad on FreedomBox?
I think it's more likely we'll look at CryptPad instead of Etherpad. At least that's the app that I've been hearing more about recently. But again, it's lots of JavaScript. I don't think it's impossible. It would just be significant packaging work for CryptPad. Etherpad, I'm not too sure about where it's at right now. There's another question. Any guidance on security when setting this up? So I guess, okay, so FreedomBox does come with a firewall. You can see which ports are open to the outside. I do have mine like behind a router and behind NAT, so I don't have like the standard SSH port open to the public. I use a different port, so that might be something you consider. It does have fail to ban, so if people are trying to log in with random passwords, it can ban the IPs for a while.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I don't have any particular guidance on security. Just we try to make it as secure as possible.
Can FreedomBox run internally and not forward to, like, sites are not going to forward to like the public web so that people can't just get in to an unrecognized port on a network or get into the site via, like have it
I guess
internal?
it depends what you're trying to do with your FreedomBox. Most people do want to have some kind of public presence, maybe a wiki or a website or something. If you want something very private, yeah, you could possibly configure it differently. And this is probably something we need to think about making more accessible in the user interface. Sort of deciding which things are private and which
If you
things
want
are
to make
public.
if I want to make an intranet with it, That's what I was thinking. Not the internet. I mean like an intranet, an internal
Yeah.
website, internal wiki that is only accessible in the network. When you get out, you can't get it.
Yeah, you could do that. We more typically face the opposite problem, which is reachability. People want to be able to reach their FreedomBox from the outside, and they're not able to for various reasons.
I'm just talking
Mostly
about the people who
yeah.
don't want to.
Mhm.
That's a point we sometimes don't get at. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
What is the interface based on? Is it like cockpit based, or is it just cockpit with an easier interface? Is that what it is?
No, we have Cockpit available as a more advanced interface. The FreedomBox interface itself is designed to be very simple, so it doesn't have all the advanced features of Cockpit. It's built in Python. It's a Django app. Yeah, and we just try to keep things as simple as possible. So just choose the most sensible default options and just have a few options, a few configurations where it makes sense.
So there's no like Ansible or any of that advanced stuff. No.
No, definitely not.
No Kubernetes, no Ansible, none of the complicated stuff. It's just simple for a simple consumer to make a personal server with less than with a lot like with not many users. You know what I'm saying? Is that what it's for?
Yeah, some people are trying to use it in larger communities with maybe dozens of people, and of course in that case you would need more powerful hardware to run the FreedomBox. But yeah, the typical use case is a home, so we're talking about a small number of people likely.
I'm looking in the Etherpad, and there is a user question. Could we answer that?
Which one?
It's the green one after open discussion. I upgraded to Bullseye before the release by changing the /etc.
I think we already discussed this one.
LST list.
Yeah, Paul brought this one up actually, so we kind of already discussed it.
Oh. Is FreedomBox, it says apt install FreedomBox. So you can install FreedomBox on, if I just get plain Debian, vanilla Debian, it's in the repos?
Yes. Yep. I do recommend reading the wiki page. At least you may want to use the non-interactive front end to avoid having some configuration prompts come up. And yeah, if you do it this way, there is a first boot wizard secret, which is written into a certain file. That's just for security in case you're running like on a public cloud. So you'll need to enter that secret when you go through the first boot process. But yeah, otherwise it's pretty much just apt install FreedomBox.
What is SeerX admin?
Yeah, so I think it's pronounced search admin. So it's basically an app for searching. This is the administration interface, which lets you change the search engines that are used by the app. Actually, maybe Fred wants to talk more about this.
Well, I just make this package my first package. So I think the SearchX app, SearchX admin app is to only help users that don't want to edit the SearchX config file in the CLI interface. So they will have a graphical user interface. But for now, the package is to be tested, and the integration may cause some issues, I guess.
Yep. So any other comments or questions? I believe we have answered all the questions on the pad.
Yeah, maybe I now bought this FreedomBox hardware. How that is done by a different entity than the project of the software, or how do they really relate?
Yeah, it's a completely different entity. It's a a company that produces hardware. And they're not really too involved in the software, and people working on the software are not involved at all in production of the hardware. So it's really a completely separate entity.
So for you, it's just one of the platforms where FreedomBox is installed.
Yeah, it's probably the more popular one at this point because that's the only company selling this device at this point in time. But maybe in the future we'll have more companies selling different platforms with FreedomBox.
What about companies again?
I'm just saying perhaps in the future there could be more companies, but right now there is only one.
What's the one company?
Alamex. They make the Lime 2.
Why don't we like use Raspberry Pi? Don't they have isn't their hardware like open for anybody to modify?
You can use Raspberry Pi, but
Like, why don't you base
let's
your
say
hardware off of it?
producing a product is, I mean, if you want to do this, you can, but I think you might find it's rather
Difficult.
expensive if you want to somehow create a kit that people are going to buy. I don't know. You're welcome to try it. In fact, I encourage anyone who wants to build a FreedomBox type of product to look into this. Oh, somebody wants a live demo. I don't think we'll do a live demo, but I'll point you to a demo that you can try on your own.
Yeah, I think we don't have time for a live demo.
Yeah. Let me go to the main site. Yeah, you just go to freedombox.org and there's a button, try a demo. I will copy this link over. And on this page, it also has the username and password if you want to try it. Okay, I do see one more comment on the pad about WordPress and Nextcloud are both PHP plus MySQL apps running behind an Nginx reverse proxy. So like we will have WordPress in the next release I mentioned. It will be running behind Apache reverse proxy because at least right now FreedomBox has Apache Nginx. So we're not using Docker for WordPress. It's only proposed for Nextcloud because WordPress is actually packaged in Debian. We don't need Docker for that.
Are you going to use anything like Flatpack instead of just using Docker containers? Is that an idea?
I don't think Flatpak is really designed for servers to use. I think it's more designed for desktop applications.
Yeah, maybe Snap or something. If Snap works in Debian, but that's a canonical thing. But is Snap open
Yeah.
source, proprietary? Yeah. I don't know.
I think it's really designed to work with canonical servers. At least you would have to make some changes to get it working somewhere else.
Like, I don't even know if it's open source or not. Is it?
I believe it is, yeah.
Yeah, just making sure because everyone doesn't like Snap. Like Smith doesn't include Snap. Other projects don't include Snap. So I always thought that it was proprietary. You know what I'm saying? I know this isn't a BOF. You know what I mean? So I'm gonna let us continue. Okay.
Yep, I see some more comments appearing on the pad. I downloaded the x86-64 and executed behind a NAT network. Seems to be working pretty much out of the box. That's good. Said Etherpad could run in the same reverse proxy environment. Yeah, yeah. So we'll have Apache reverse proxy in front of. I don't know whatever's running in possible containers.
Yeah. How about stuff like? How about other stuff besides Apache? Like, how about what is the implementation of what was that? Joomla. Does Joomla work?
We do not have it integrated into FreedomBox.
Joomla?
I don't know if it's currently packaged in Debian. Do you know if there's a Debian package for this?
I have no idea. How about Drupal? Maybe.
Same story. That one might be packaged in Debian, but we have not really integrated it into FreedomBox. I feel like these CMS type systems are a little bit more complicated usually, and I don't know if most users would be wanting to set that up. It seems like WordPress would be a sort of a more popular option here.
Yeah, I think for the audience we're looking at, I think WordPress will be a better option than Joomla because Joomla is kind of confusing, you know?
Mm-hmm. I saw one more question about Rock64. Does it work reasonably well, or would you still recommend LMXbox? As far as I know, I think Rock64 does work pretty well, and so I do recommend looking into those. I think we have images for both Rock64 and the Rock Pro 64, if I remember. What's that?
How about the Pine? Pine 64?
Pine. Yes, we have some images for Pine 64 LTS, I think. Yes, but the Rock 64 is like a more powerful version of the Pine, so I think that would work very well as a FreedomBox. If anyone has a contact at Pine and would like to talk them into building a FreedomBox product, that would be great.
I think Pine is more into the mobile computing right now because I think they're not into servers as much. You know what I'm saying?
But I did see they have a big cluster of Rock Pros that are running their own web services. So.
Oh, so maybe they'll be maybe they'll have some insights. Maybe if any of you have a friend at Pine, phone them and say, hey, or contact Pine. Hey, I want to have a FreedomBox with Pine. You know what I'm saying? Product with Pine.
I see there's not much time left. I guess any closing comments before we wrap up? I'll just thank everyone for joining into this BoF, and I think it was a very good discussion.